Hey everyone, this is Mike Casu, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week I interviewed my good buddy Tommy Marquez. You may know him from the CrossFit Update Show and Inside the Leaderboard. We started out talking about how he got involved with CrossFit headquarters, what he does to kind of hone his craft, how he becomes a better speaker, how he becomes better on camera. And I think a lot of you will find that useful because a lot of you are coaches and you want to communicate with your athletes better. So I think there are some gems in here. We also talk about some statistical analysis and just some ways that the CrossFit Games are becoming a legitimate sport and how this thing has become more and more engaging. Tommy is a super intelligent guy, great speaker. I just know you're going to enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, this is Tommy Marquez, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast.
All right, guys, I'm here with Tommy Marquez and my co-host, Brooke Ince. She's going to pop in every now and then with an intelligent comment of some sort. Thanks for joining me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're gonna roll this out with a funny story that Tommy has. I don't know it yet, so hopefully it's a good one.
Well, as you know, I do some on-camera work with CrossFit, and our biggest thing every year is being at the games, getting to go live, getting to pull out all the stops when we have our biggest budget. We get to add a lot of cool new facets to it. And in 2014, we decided to do some cool fan experience stuff, have a correspondent out in the field, and it just so happened that our person that we picked for it was Brooke. So we're going through it, giving her some tips and stuff. Like, here's the things that you need to do. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about it. You're gonna kick ass. You're gonna knock this one out of the park. And we're like, the first thing you do, if you mess up, since it's live TV, just keep going. Mm-hmm. Because once live TV is over, it's over. Like, people don't
mm-hmm.
think about it much,
right.
And then they forget about it. And they don't care you make a mistake. And the other thing is, don't get startled and curse, right? Because we are broadcasting, yeah. And another thing for this too is, like, we want this show to be network ready. Mm-hmm. So there's certain words you can't say
sure.
on live air. And so we tossed to Brooke for her very first one. She's in the beer garden, I believe, and the audio headsets are kind of shaky, so she doesn't quite hear when we give her the toss. So she starts a little bit earlier.
Paint a picture real quick, all right? I'm in the beer garden, and there are a shitload of people around me. I can't hear myself think. In the second that they turn me on, the TV I'm looking at so I can see what's happening, they've put me on the big screen, so then everyone literally turns around and rushes to my corner. So I was startled, okay? It was the first time.
And understandable, because what we do is, rather than sometimes just making a hard cut from us at the desk to her, we'll do a split screen, right? So we introduce her, people get to see her, and then we take her full. And she starts a little bit earlier, and it's hard for her to hear, and she realizes she starts too soon. So she just goes, "Oh, fuck," on live broadcast. And granted, she's being pumped to, the beer garden there, to the StubHub Center, big jumbotrons down in the athlete area. Uh-huh. She just goes, "Oh, fuck," gives the deer in the headlights look, and just stops. And right as we tossed to her, so everyone just heard her curse, mm-hmm. Everyone just saw her get freaked out, and then camera comes to her, and it's silence.
That is amazing.
Granted, she picked it up like a champ, and she ended up going along with it. But it was just pretty funny because, obviously Brooke's an amazingly talented person. She does all this on-camera stuff mm-hmm. with us now. She's a games athlete now, and right. She's gone on to have all this success. But it was just so funny that, we put her in this situation, and the first thing she does is freaks out and then drops an F-bomb for everyone at the StubHub Center to hear.
It's my favorite word.
Makes sense.
Yeah, that part does not surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that she picked it up quickly either. That's awesome. So, speaking of your on-camera work, it seems like how long have you been with HQ?
I started doing contract work with headquarters in 2011.
Okay.
Actually, regionals 2011, the South Dirty South Regional was my first event that I worked with them, and then. And
how did you get involved in the first place?
So in early 2011, I was about a year into running a gym with me and a close friend of mine, Kenny Castro, were running a gym together. Mm-hmm. And one of the headquarters guys, Russ Green, everyone knows him as one of our social media guys, was training with me in the evening times, and we would talk shop after our workouts. We would push each other in workouts. He's a really fit dude, and I think he passed my name along to as someone who just follows the sport, knows the sport really well. And I think it was the Tuesday before the first weekend of regionals, I get a call from Rory McKernan, and he goes, "Hey man, I've heard your name tossed around the office a few times. We need someone to be a field producer of sorts, and like equipment manager and stuff, and someone who just knows the sport, because we got all these camera guys and stuff out there that don't know the sport too well, and they need a little bit of guidance."
Okay.
And I'm like, "Okay, well, what does that involve?" He's like, "You're gonna have to be on the road for 5 weeks straight." I'm like, "Okay, when does it start?" And he goes, "Tomorrow. Can you be on a plane to Jacksonville tomorrow?"
Fuck yeah.
And so I went to Kenny. I'm like, "Hey man, I got this call from Rory. He wants me to do this contract gig with headquarters. Can I do it?" And he's like, "Don't worry about it. We'll get the classes covered. We'll get everything figured out." And I was programming for the gym at the time. So he's like, obviously you can work on programming on the plane. And I was like, "Yep, I got all of it. I'll make sure all my stuff gets done." And then it just kind of all took off from there. I worked five regionals straight. I took a break, came back and worked for the games as a media volunteer coordinator. And then they just kept having me back. Brought me in to help with the update show a little bit. Everything from production assistant, just getting coffee and working the teleprompter, because we had a teleprompter at the time. We don't now, but all those little odds and ends jobs. And I just kept raising my hand anytime people had anything to do. I was like, "I'll do it. I'll do it."
And is that how you've always been, or did you see this as something like you really wanted to make a good impression, and so you worked harder than you might normally?
No, it's funny. Anytime I get passionate about something, like something I really sink my teeth into, I'll nerd out on it. I love consuming knowledge, and it's funny. I'm a great guy to have on your team for trivia, because I have a lot of useless knowledge, because I find
first round draft pick for sure.
Exactly, and I get these these wild hairs on things I find passionate.
Right.
And CrossFit was one of them. And actually, for me, I remember sitting on the plane the second week of regionals, thinking I get to help people on this micro scale at my gym. If I get to do work with the headquarters, I get to do it on a macro scale. I love influencing people and making people better and improving their lives in this way. And now I have an opportunity to do it on such a big scale that it would just I would find it much more fulfilling, and I'd feel like I'd be doing such a better service to our community.
Okay. When did you start doing on-camera work?
So I started doing on-camera work the end of 2013, right into 2014. Okay. So I actually hadn't
just under 2 years.
Yeah,
wow.
Just under 2 years. So I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of stats stuff, a lot of research for Pat, for Sean, for Ro, for Miranda, and helping
prepping them for the on-camera stuff.
Well, yeah, and so I love to nerd out on a lot of the stats and stuff behind the sport. So I would give them all these cool historical and predictive stats and stuff like that. And we'd sit in our production meetings and I'd talk about it. And finally one day, my good buddy Charlie Doobie, who's our lead producer, and I have tons and tons of thanks to him, because I owe a lot to him. It was just like, "Dude, you should present this. You can say this on camera. You say it well enough in the production meeting, a few tips, and you can be one of our guys. You can be like our stats guy we toss to." And so we got a couple reps here and there, and they liked what I did. And the people upstairs were like, "Yeah, give him a little bit more work, and then I just kind of started chewing up minutes and time on the camera.
That's
so
awesome.
It's just all taken off from there.
That's really cool, man. What are some mistakes that you think you've made that you've learned from your on-camera work, and just even I don't know if you've done announcing or just any kind of speaking role?
Getting a little complacent sometimes. We at headquarters, a lot of us are asked to wear multiple hats. It's getting less and less like that, because so early on our numbers in terms of employees wasn't as big, so we were doing a lot of different things, and I got comfortable being on camera and providing my stats and stuff like that. And there's one of the rules I was told very early on by Pat Sherwood and Sean Woodland, who are guys that I work with now on camera and have been huge mentors for me, is you can always be better. Oh, you can always be, just like CrossFit. You can always work on little things to get a little bit better. And at times, because I understand the stats and I do so much research, I kind of rest on my laurels and focus on other things. When I could maybe put a an extra half hour of prep into it to make myself sound a little bit more fluid on camera. And every once in a while that happens, and then I'm like, oh crap, I didn't sound good that time. I didn't feel like I presented the information well, and that kind of goes against what our mission statement is. So I'm not doing my best job of educating and entertaining and inspiring. So like anytime I find that, I'm like, I got to do that better. I got to be better at that. I want us to be, when people look back and they look at our media team and the product we provide, I want them to have no doubt that we're right up there with Red Bull, with ESPN, with any sort of NBC Sports, any broadcast level thing where you could just plug us in right then and there.
I love it. Do you guys go back and watch all of your filming and to see where you can do better?
Absolutely. I watch every single thing we do, and we usually watch it like 3 to 4 times.
Really?
Yeah.
And you give each other feedback and stuff like that?
Yeah, and we'll talk about
That's
it.
awesome.
We'll talk about it a little bit. And Charlie, our producer of the update show, and Joe Novello, who's like our coordinating producer for our games media team, he's like the wise sage. He's got more years in broadcast and television than I think I have years alive on this planet. So he does a great job of like giving us constructive feedback and helping us work. And we have another guy, Mike Roth, who's the director of the live event of the games. We do boot camps all the time, where we'll basically call live events or do on-camera stuff, and we'll just critique each other and just work on each other. Right. It's kind of that feedback loop that they teach at the level 1 that we try to work into our stuff as well. So, and that's funny because we watch all of our stuff multiple times, and usually we just watch it on YouTube, which means we read all the YouTube comments too, which
shit. Could be rough.
YouTube is the meanest place on the planet.
I hear Reddit is.
Reddit's pretty tough, but there's a kind of an air of like, I don't know, joking about it. And like I don't know, Reddit's kind of this weird subculture, but like YouTube, it's just like anyone can sign onto YouTube. Not everyone knows about Reddit. Not everyone gets involved with it, but any keyboard warrior, any goon with a keyboard can hop on and just write some funny ass shit, and sometimes people are just there to be mean. Like they didn't watch the video, they didn't care about anything else. They're just there to gripe and complain. And you take that with a grain of salt because it's whatever. It's not going to stop what we're doing. We're trying to provide a good product to our affiliates and serve them. So
right. In a second, Brooke, I'm going to ask you for a mean tweet or YouTube comment you've got. So be thinking about that. This is kind of the pre-launch of a new series we're doing that we'll tell you about later. Tommy, what are some things that you think you are maybe naturally good at that make you good, like a good on-camera person, as well as what do you think are some of the things that you've learned through this process the last couple of years in CrossFit, and where do you? Well, I'll stay there. I'll stay there for now.
In terms of being on camera, it sounds weird to say, but I talk like I think. There are people that they think of something that they want to write, and then when it comes down to paper, they're kind of like, that wasn't how I had it in my head, or, it didn't come out right. Usually for me, like when I think about my talking points and what I want to talk about, like the first thing that pops in my head, I write it down and I say it back to myself maybe once, twice, and it's pretty much like how I want to say it. Okay. And I'm very fortunate in that. I think I just spend too much time thinking of myself maybe. And I don't want to gloat, but I feel like I'm good at talking to people. Like I feel like when I make
very good.
Thank you. When I talk and I present on camera, I want to feel like I'm having a conversation with someone, because even though we're analysts and we're experts in our field, we don't want to come across as someone who's like, I know this and you don't. Yep. So like, suck it or something like that. I don't know. Like we want to make it presentable and digestible for people so they feel like, oh yeah, I heard this on the update show and I learned this and I feel like I'm part of the crew now, I'm in the know, and that's really what we want to do. So I think that's probably my biggest asset, and that, and I love consuming stats and data.
Right. So the amount of knowledge that you have makes you maybe a little more confident speaking about what you're speaking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there are times, and it always happens on camera, where you go to say something and you have it planned out, written out, you've said it a dozen times in your head, and you just hit a blank. And you kind of have to rely on just the database of knowledge that you already have in your head, you know,
Right.
like the repetitions and everything like that. It's, you know, just like in CrossFit, when you get tired and stuff, you have to fall back onto that technique that you've drilled over and over again. And so when that happens, I can, you know, quick reference a stat or a historical piece or something along those lines that kind of saves me, I
Right.
guess. And that's, you know, it makes it a little bit more fluid. There's less mess ups in that regard, and it kind of saves my ass from time to time.
Sure. What are some ways that you guys like promote kind of a team environment? So you were saying, I want us to be known at, you know, up there with Red Bull, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any specific things that you guys do or philosophies that you guys have, you know, always follow? Or is it just by spending, you know, a number of hours together? What is it?
Well, it's, you know, it's very funny. I look at our games team very much like a family, and our whole office, for that matter, is very, very close. We do a lot of events together. We do a lot of like get-togethers and, you know, happy hours, you know, just casual stuff, spending time outside the gym. We train together at the gym. You know, a group gets together at noon. A handful of us get together afterwards. You know, we're always kind of doing things in that regard from the physical nature, which is a bonding experience in itself. But it's funny. We always talk about we want to first serve our affiliates in what we do in the media we provide, and, you know, whether it's focusing on the sport or, you know, the everyday community type people. We want to educate people because we want them to understand our sport, understand CrossFit, understand, you know, all these things that we find so wonderful, right? And we want to entertain as well. You can throw inspire in there because, you know, what we do want to drive people to continue that pursuit of a better, you know, a better version of themselves. But I think we're all very focused on that. And when you have all these people in a common goal, we're all CrossFitters. We all know what it's like to want to be better. And it's such a weird dynamic because, you know, there's no like, at least on our team, there's not very many like massaging of personalities and things like that because we all kind of like have our eyes on the prize.
Right.
But we do like get-togethers and team outings and stuff like that. And even the way we have our offices laid out, because we just had some remodeling, is conducive to us being together.
Right.
So like the way it works, and for people at home who have never been to the office, there's like this wing of our office. So you walk in through a double door, and there's a huge common area, and our offices wrap around. So all of our doors open up to this common area, this lounge. And for the most part, we keep our doors open so we can just brainstorm, and
Right.
we're always like sitting around kind of shooting the shit. Like,
It's such a fucking cool environment.
yeah,
I
it's
love it.
it's great. It's very casual, and everyone's so open to be able to go and approach one another, and it's like an open door policy across the board. So it's one of those things where we've spent so much time getting to know each other. We're all friends. We hang out, and everyone gets along. That like when we do something like the games, and they're long hours and no sleep, and I've got a main line of caffeine into my right arm. It's like, you know, these are the people I know I don't have to worry about.
Right.
I have no problem going
That's
to battle with.
badass. I love that. And you also probably don't get burnt out because you have so much freedom in other times of the year, right?
Absolutely. And there are people, you know, because everyone's a little bit different. You know, some people just get burnt out. I'm speaking solely for myself. I don't ever feel burnt out. There's maybe been one time in my entire time at CrossFit where I felt a little burnt out. And that was more so because we just our media plan at the time was so round the clock during a regional season. I think we live streamed for almost like 100 hours straight.
Wow.
And at the time I was responsible for the people that were logging all that footage. So I was getting up at 4 a.m., setting up our logging stations, overseeing some people log from 4 a.m. to like 8, working from 8 to 5, filming recap shows from like 6 to midnight, sleeping at the office from like 1 to 4, and then getting up and doing it again, and did that for 4 weekends in a row.
Right.
So that was a little bit tough, but I've never ever questioned it.
Yeah.
There's never been any idea where I'm like, oh man, I need to get away from this. It's always like, I want to come to the office. I want to do this. I want to be involved in this.
Right. You guys obviously have a really, really strong culture at HQ, and whoever does the picking does a really, really good job of picking people that are not just going to do their job, but they're going to innovate. They're going to go above and beyond for the team, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially for our games team, we've had like this production assistant system where each year we bring in some new people to come work with us. And for me, it's very much sink or swim. You very early on, it's quite apparent whether or not you're going to be able to pick up what we do here and whether you're able to contribute. And, there are people that we've brought on as production assistants and people to come work with us that haven't necessarily panned out. But it's very apparent that, and we've also gotten very lucky too, because we've gotten some great references from people that would fit our production assistant job, that are hungry, they love CrossFit, and they love media. And even if they're not necessarily have all the skills right away, they're willing to pour themselves into it and learn. And I think them being CrossFitters lends itself to having some of those qualities. Like, if you're going to go into the gym and you're going to pour yourself into getting your ass beat in a workout and like coming back and being better, like certain qualities about those types of people are going to carry over to other aspects of your life. And we talk about that all the time. That's not a new concept, but it definitely pays off for us in the media side when we get fresh faces in the office to eventually become like huge parts of our team.
Yeah, I love that. Brooke, you ready?
There's so many.
You got a good one? You need a little bit? Okay, I'll come back to you. We got time? Who are some of your favorite people to work with in the community? Give me
athletes, or
give me your favorite athlete.
I would say Dan Bailey. He's just a good guy. He's humble. He's very centered. He's funny. He's like low-key funny. I feel like he's definitely, people have gotten to see another side of him in the last few years, like the Danny Broflex series we did, and just being able to have him around. We were very fortunate to have him around the office for an extended period of time last year. He actually lived with me for a few months, so I got to see him in his everyday work and like have him as a roommate, and personality starts to come out a little bit more. He's just fantastic. I love working with Margot Alvarez. She's just a fantastic human being. She's got an amazing story. She's got, and rightfully so, she's got some external things that have happened to her that motivate her on a daily basis. And she's good people. I like them. I like her a lot. Those are two of my favorites, I would definitely say.
Yeah.
They're just like, they're always willing to work with us, and they always provide a good product, great interviews, stuff like that. They're very insightful, and they're actually like people we would think about, like if they ever decide to hang it up and not compete, that we would love to have as analysts as well. So
right, that's awesome. You look like you're ready.
I got some stuff.
All right.
Okay.
This is Brooke Ince coming up. She's got some mean social media stuff. Feel free to share the name of the mean tweeter and tweet.
Oh yeah.
All right, so this was from Hank Brown 74.
Ooh.
Hank Brown.
Coming at you, Hank. There's a picture of me, and he posted.
What's the picture of?
Hank Brown.
It was me when I was in Milan, and I was at the train station. Okay. He just wanted to let me know that my arms were too big.
Oh, yeah.
So of course, I commented back at him. And he said, where did I find it? He said, arms are too big for my taste. So I wrote him back and said, I bet you have really good taste. Hank Brown 74.
What do people
and then he decided to write me back and said this. At Brookends, sorry you took offense. Yes, you look great. The point you missed is I never tried to tell you to change what you do or like. Don't take opinions so personally. Hashtag different strokes for different folks. Oh man.
Sounds like
I definitely shouldn't take people's opinions to heart, but for some reason when it's written on my social media, I can't help but
Yeah, that,
you know,
that
look
wasn't
into
the
it a little
worst
bit.
one for sure.
There's more.
But Hank.
You know, it's one of those things, like, don't take it personally. I just went out of my way to go onto your social media page and comment
what was
something
the one
about
that you
you
gave me?
that I didn't like. But, you know, don't worry about it. Like,
Here's one more, you know, just for your, yeah. Just because. They majority sound like this. From Blythe, I don't even know how to say that.
Blythe Bodoin.
Bedoin?
Bedoin. Tagging their buddy. A lot of people come in and they tag their friends.
How do you spell
JK, no way in hell would I want that body. Basically a man.
Wow.
And I was like, I think it's a picture that I actually looked really feminine. I was proud of, like, you know, my hair that day. My hair was in a bone, in a bun, but
Abs are popping, you know?
abs were just straight
Sun
popping.
glistening off of them just nice.
Just nice. That's pretty fucked up.
What they don't know is how big my dick really is and how hard I have to work to tuck that thing when I'm wearing tiny little shorts.
I mean, that's impressive. I don't know how you hit it.
Don't talk about your dick like that. You're
not
not
that
supposed
big.
to tell people how big it is.
I'm impressed, you know?
No, it looks like it's not even there, honestly, most of the time.
I find that when I wear booty shorts, I just can't tuck it anywhere.
I can. It's pretty easy for me.
I just push it inside myself.
Tommy, let's talk about some of the statistical stuff that you've done. You said at first you started doing a lot of analysis and stuff for CrossFit. Do you do that now as well?
Yeah, and we're actually working on some more stuff as well. I've got some great people to work with. A guy by the name of Chad Schroeder, who he's just like a mole for stat. He just loves digging up like historical stuff. We have a guy by the name of Mike McPherson, who's like a stats and numbers like guru. Mm-hmm. Great with math, great with numbers, and really the way it works is like, you know, we come up with this concept like, hey, like we want to check to see if, you know, if there's any trend or any
Like a correlation.
yeah,
between-
correlation here and here, you know, what we're looking at. And, you know, he'll run the numbers, and sometimes they come back like there's nothing there. And sometimes they come back to, no, actually there's a pretty strong correlation. So, you know, we come up with these concepts. We talk to our numbers guys who are much better at like running all the data. And then they come back to us like, okay, this is what the data is. And then, you know, it's up to us to interpret it, apply it, provide context to it, make it palatable to the community. Because, you know, I can sit up there and, you know, as our buddy Marson likes to make fun of me, be like, oh, well, the square root of, 64 is
Right.
8, you know, with a remainder of this. And nobody's going to listen to that, you know. And we want to give them some sort of context to the stats where they can think about that number and turn it around later on and have some better understanding of the sport.
Sure.
And we kind of talked about this before, but I call it the he's due, I guess, situation. So like in baseball, it's just a huge numbers driven sport. You know, even the casual viewer who likes baseball, maybe played a little bit, doesn't geek out on it a ton,
Right.
will watch a baseball game, one of their favorite teams or whatever, a guy who maybe has been in a little bit of a slump, and be able to, you know, they make a casual reference like, oh, this guy's due. He's going to get hit. He's due. And it's like, where do they get that understanding to be able to make that sort of prediction, right? But baseball is a sport that's got a huge history, a long lineage of numbers and stuff like that. And as a fan, you've been provided so much media to understand, like, okay, this guy bats at this average, you know, and he's had this many attempts where he hasn't gotten a hit, so he's batting below his average, but the law of averages plays out, so he's going to get a hit eventually. So, and they're able to just subconsciously translate that, you know, like when watching a guy do a free throw, like, I know if like Steve Nash misses a free throw, I'm like, oh, this guy shoots 98%, like he's gonna make this next one, like it's okay, and it's a casual, you know. I guess calculation you make in your mind, you're not even really aware of it, that's been built over time, and that's what we're aiming for. You know, we want people to be able to, you know, look at the sport, you know, look at these live events and have a better understanding of what they're about to see, and then once it happens, a better understanding and implications of what they just saw.
Okay.
So when, you know, Matt Fraser goes up to a barbell and hits a 225 snatch in like the snatch ladder, and fails the 245 at this the speed snatch ladder or whatever, the average viewer at home may not understand what's the likelihood of him hitting this next bar. But for all the CrossFitters, if we provide them enough context, enough data, and enough understanding at the sport, they're going to be like, oh, I know that there's a good chance he's going to hit this next bar. And you know what? Ben Smith's coming up right next to him. And Ben Smith's got the same snatch numbers as him.
Okay. It makes it way more engaging.
Yeah,
right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And then now, okay, there's some drama here. I understand what's going on, and I can get excited for it. And then the energy feels that. And then, the athletes feel that. We feel that. And it makes it for a much more entertaining aspect of the sport. And that was a little long-winded, but that's basically what we're
absolutely.
going for.
I love that analogy, and I think of it like if I were to go and watch a cricket game, I'm sure there are some raging cricket fans out there, but if I go and watch it, I have no idea what's going on. I don't even know what they play with, honestly. A ball? They have a ball involved?
Yeah, it looks like a croquet ball or something.
Right. So I just would have no idea what to expect. So I would be totally disengaged, and it just wouldn't be interesting. So the more you can educate people and just educate them about what people are capable of, what to expect, it's gonna make the entire sport a little bit more entertaining, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And they're training in the gym, like if they have an understanding of this is how it works, even at the most elite level, it gives people a bit of framework of knowledge for them to kind of have some expectations for themselves and kind of set their goals and set some expectations for themselves to kind of shoot for every time when they go into the gym. Like it's just kind of a trickle down effect in that regard, and really that's what we want. We want it to trickle down to even though the new CrossFitter that's trying to figure out, how they should progress in a workout, or how they should, progress with their strength sets and stuff like that, or the gymnastics. And we want to serve the entirety of the community, and it's a very kind of self-feeding machine that we're going for.
Okay. And I want to go even deeper into this, but where are you finding all of this data? Are you looking on just the games.crossfit.com? And if there are other places, where are those other places?
Yeah, so I do probably as much leaderboarding and just spending time on the game's leaderboard page than I would suffice to say just about anyone on this planet.
Yeah.
I'm terrible about keeping tabs open on my computer, but at any given day at the office, and you can hear Marcin in the background lamenting about it, but I've got every games leaderboard from 2008 on open in my tab. So for the most part, like I keep them separated 2008, 2009, 2010, and then I usually put another tab in between, and then I have 2011 on, because 2011 is what I consider the modern era. So since the games programming was standardized and everything was kind of known in terms of locations and stuff like that.
So would you call 2010 and earlier, is that more paleo than 2011?
I would say yeah.
That was a trick question.
I can't win with that one.
Yeah.
I can't. You know what? I'm gonna say it was a year where they ate, meat, fish, eggs, nuts and seeds.
Oh, absolutely.
Some fruit, little starch.
There was no gluten in 2010 for sure.
In amounts that increase performance but not excess body fat.
Yeah.
That's what I'll go for.
Love it.
Actually, no, I don't know about that, because I'm pretty sure I saw Chris Clever have a few beers after a couple events.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. But she was winning anyway, so it didn't
Could have
really
been
matter.
cider. But
Yeah, that's
you don't
true.
know.
Yeah, cider's paleo, right?
Let's hope, right? God forbid she's drinking the fucking gluten.
Oh, man. That's awesome.
Much less eat. So what kind of things are you guys starting to predict or really dive into? What kind of correlations are you looking at? What have you found?
For us, it's like we're in, I guess at the very, very surface layer. Like anytime we're in a competition, so say we're in regionals, for example, we have known events, 7, 6 sometimes, and we're going into maybe the last 2 events, and we have people on the bubble, because really that's one of our biggest times in terms of traffic is who's going to go to the games.
Got it.
Everyone wants to know who's going to be a games athlete this year, and so what we want to provide is going into those last events, six or seven, or when people are in a heated race for it, we want to provide them. Okay, if athlete A does this, they will go to the games. If athlete B does this, then they will overtake them and go to the games. And based on their performances, based on history, this is what they're more than likely to do. Or this athlete B is more than likely to overtake them in this. And we're starting to compile every data from every workout, every event that we've ever done when it regards to loading, in regards to time domain, in regards to movements, so we can have kind of this historical kind of data graph of what athletes excel at, maybe where they don't excel, where they're improving, where they've shown extreme extreme deficiencies in, where their holes might be. And because really with what we deal with in terms of broadcast and live event and stuff, people want to know right now who's going to win. The prediction is the strongest thing. Like, they want to know, these two people are fighting for one spot. Who's going to get that spot? And they look to us to tell them, you know, and we want to give them reasoning why, because I can just say, I think this person is going to win or whatever. So those stats, those predictive stats, are huge for us. And then I think the second big thing for me is being able to provide some cool historical stuff. And I've said this before, but like, you see on ESPN, like, or you watch a Sports Center broadcast, because they're great with their graphics and with their stats. They have an amazing stats database. They have like, oh, well, this is the historical people that have done this feat across the entirety of basketball and its history. So like, when you see LeBron James go, 20 for 20 from the field, and they can be like, you know what? Only two other players in the history of basketball have gone 20 for 20 from the field, and it's there to finger.
Those little bits and pieces.
So while we're watching this, we can realize we're watching history here. Like, what we're watching is special, and for the viewer, that creates a next level connection. They feel like they're much more a part of something, and that's kind of like what's great about sports, right? We all want to share in that like special moment, in those really cool things where we see people that we revere, athletes we look up to, do something that is more than just human. It's kind of superhuman, and there's kind of like that, revelry in that, I guess, and people want to share in that. And when we do that, we're able to help them share in that. So that's huge for us as well.
And that's one of the ways you can bring in the non-CrossFitter that just turns on ESPN, right?
Yeah,
that's really cool.
And that's some of that is comparative stats too. So like, with us being on ESPN, we're exposed to an entirely new crowd of people, and what happens is, when they turn on the tube and they see people flipping the pigs from last game, they're like, well, that just looks like a sack of potatoes to me. And instead you can be like, this is a 500-pound pig. This is the equivalent of flipping a baby elephant over on its end. And someone's like, oh, an elephant, that's kind of heavy. Like, damn, that must be pretty hard then. And we've instantly created another connection for them that's like, wow, what we're seeing is not normal. Like, even if I have no idea what that movement entails and stuff, I just know that they're moving something that's not easy. So that's those are very in the moment, and those are for like the casual CrossFitters, and then like the historical stuff and the predictive stuff is for like the diehards.
That's really cool. Kind of switching gears a little bit. I want just kind of an opinion to see what HQ thinks, almost what you guys think of this. So there have been rumors for the last couple years that, and maybe rumors is the wrong word, but that the games are just getting heavier and heavier, and CrossFit is more about weightlifting for some reason, and maybe it's because it's sexier. And I know that there are, and the argument is that we are way closer. We're way closer to an elite level in weightlifting than we are in endurance sports or gymnastics. And I've seen some stats that show that we are not closer in the endurance field. Like, we're actually equally as close in weightlifting and endurance, like looking at 5K elite runners and stuff like that. Do you guys ever talk about that in the office, and what's your opinion on all that?
A little bit, and it's kind of funny. I don't want to say those comparisons don't necessarily apply to us because like our sport is just this whole different beast because we combine so many different modalities and time domains and all this stuff that factor in. So it's when you're talking about just like comparing like how do you run with a 5K person? How do you compare with a 5K person, or how do you compare with a weightlifter? To me, and I'm speaking for myself too, and some of the sentiments, because it kind of goes against what some of the initial things of the initial like foundations of CrossFit were. Like we want to be good at everything, and nature punishes the specialist. So like we don't occupy ourselves with these notions of like how close we are to the specialist. It's a great thing, when we do realize like, oh man, like we have CrossFitters that could have. Or we do have CrossFitters now, high-level CrossFitters, winning the American Open in weightlifting, or Sam Briggs rode the 4th fastest half marathon in the world as a CrossFitter, not a dedicated rower, or Jason Kalipa rode a 2K that put him in the top 10 in the world that year. Like,
no.
You have to double check that stat. I don't know if that's 100% correct.
That's fucking crazy.
But Kalipa and Briggs were both competitive on a world stage. Wow. With reported scores for the 2K and the half marathon respectively. And it's just like, to an extent we don't always test like a pure 5K, or we combine them with other things as well. But like to me it's like I like comparing that. I like being able to see that, but to me it goes along hand in hand with the notion that some people are like, oh, it's easier to develop your engine or your gas tank than it is your strength. Like you need to be so much more strength bias in the last few months develop an engine. And it's funny to me. It's like I don't think that's the case. Right. I just think there are more people in this world that have done sports and have backgrounds in sports that involve running, that involve breathing hard, that involve some sort of aerobic base, that they don't realize it, but it's been ingrained in us for years and years. And like, I'll take myself as an example. Like I always feel like I can go out and run. I can add, get my engine back fairly quick, but I've grew up my entire life running track, playing soccer, playing basketball, playing football, which is sprint intervals for football. It's constant back and forth for basketball, and it's running for track. And it's like, of course, why wouldn't I do that? Right. So I just think people are so quick to like jump at the next conclusion, like prisoners of the moment, like, oh, CrossFit is this or CrossFit is that. Put a label on it. Put a label on that. Like, I just think they need to take a step back, right. Appreciate it for what it is, what the test is, and what our athletes are able to do at that moment, and not get so caught up on how heavily favored we are towards one thing or another. Right. So that's my personal opinion, and I think, I would say that's kind of where I'm at with that. And that's fair. Yeah, it's hard to get I can't speak for the entire company just because I'm just one person, but.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you so every year or so there's like a new movement, or obviously there's equipment, but there's like a new movement introduced, like a deficit strict handstand push-up or something like that. Do y'all talk about, or can you predict some new movements that we might see, new ways of doing certain types of movements that we already do, that kind of thing?
If I'm being honest, no, because it's one of those things. There's a great deal of secrecy that goes into the games, and like it's funny to hear the conspiracy theories about that stuff, because like people who are outside of the company and have no clue what's goes on, but like they think like we're just like conspiring to do this and throw this wrench, and it's like, no, that's not it. Like there's a team of people that program. I'm not included in that. People I know aren't included in that. We're not aware of the workouts. We don't know them ahead of time. Like the integrity of the sport is very much upheld in that regard. And it's funny because Brooke's actually seen part of that as like the demo girl. People assume that she gets to know the workouts, and it's like, no, pay attention. Did you ever see her do the entirety of the workout? Right. No, you just saw her doing independent movements stitched together. Like it's a big difference. It's really hard for us in that regard because there are people much above my pay grade that have a much better feel for the progression of our athletes in terms of, hey, we can move the bar this far in front of them and see if them catch up. So, we do predictive stats based on what's known. But the element that it's hard for us on the media side to predict is the unknown. And that's a very important component of testing fitness and testing fitness at the level of the CrossFit Games. So that's tough for us.
Okay. In terms of, say, all of the current games athletes, do you see the playing field kind of evening out, or are there still where everybody's on kind of the same level, or are there still people that are just so far ahead of the others that they're not going to catch up?
I think that now there's still people that are just head and shoulders above. I think on any given year there's 10 people that legitimately have a chance to win the CrossFit Games. And there's so many other factors that play into that and how that expresses itself. And really there's like 2 or 3 people you can put your finger on, like these guys are going to be in the top 5.
Right.
I think in 10 years, that'll be a completely different story. I think you'll have people, because it's still like, oh, I had a background in weightlifting, or I had a background in swimming, or I had a background in football. You're going to see in 10 years people that say, I have a background in CrossFit.
Yeah.
Like I would train CrossFit from the time I started. And that's going to completely change things.
I have a question about what you just said.
Oh.
More of an argument.
And I think that's going to be a huge difference, because you talk about people who develop skills and stuff in other sports that are expressed through CrossFit. We talk about the 10 general physical skills. I think you give people the ability to develop those skills, but more honed in on their sport specifically. And I think that's going to start to level the playing field, with obviously some things like genetics and environmental factors playing into it. But I think you're going to see more. It's going to get harder to get to the games. It's going to be even harder to get back to the games. And at some point down the line, maybe 10 years, 10, 15 years, you're going to see people that are just like on this whole nother level on themselves. And it's every year there's going to be someone new coming knocking on the door, knocking off the top dog. It's very much like what you see with the UFC. The first generation of UFC fighters were great ground and pounders, brawlers, maybe didn't have the finesse of all the jiu-jitsu skills, or they were just a jiu-jitsu specialist and they weren't great strikers. Now you see in UFC, there's guys that have the total package, top to bottom. There's still some people lingering around from the old guard of athletes, but now you see people that just have a background in MMA now. That's all they do. And it seems like every year it gets harder for people to hold on to their belts, and stay at the top when someone else is knocking on the door to take them out.
I'm reading a book right now called The Sports Gene, and it talks about a lot of that with people starting at a really young age and how much time they're putting in, how much focus they're putting in on one thing, and how it's actually important for them to not be focused on one thing.
Yeah.
So the argument or the question is more so, we have all these kids that are just doing CrossFit right now, and we have all these little kids that that's what they want to do. So they don't focus on anything else. And they're growing up, going to the gym. We have no idea the effects of competing in CrossFit on your body, for a long period of time. And as a kid, you learn so much from playing different sports and doing all sorts of different things and actually becoming an athlete, not just being good at doing fitness, which is what CrossFit is. And I love CrossFit and I compete at it. So, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but I think there's a lot to say for the people coming up that maybe they won't be doing things that what, the top athletes are doing right now. Because if all they're doing is CrossFit, there's a lot to say for genetics. There's a lot to say for learning how to be an athlete, doing a lot of different things, not just learning how to do kipping pull-ups, butterfly pull-ups, thrusters, learning how to move a barbell. Like in life and in sports, you're actually learning agility. You're using it. I mean, look at you. You ran track. You played basketball. I danced. I played softball. I did gymnastics. I swam on the swim team. A lot of different things. A lot of those I didn't do for a long period of time. But what you actually learn, and for me, dancing my whole life, that's actually what's given me more of what helps me in CrossFit than anything else. Yeah. And I also genetically, I'm a strong athlete, and genetics totally play a role. But yeah, I'm not saying that it's going to be one way or the other, but I do think there's a lot to say for for that.
Yeah.
You know, kids starting at such a young age, which you'd automatically think like, oh, you're going to be doing it longer. You're going to be way better than everybody
Yeah.
else. But if that's all you're focusing on, there's a reason why, you know, some of the top athletes, besides just their genetic makeup, why they're as good as they are.
Yeah,
And it's not because they've been doing it since, you know, they were 5 years old.
And I'd agree with that, but you also have to take into account that take out the assumption that what training is going to look like in 10 years is going to stay the same, right? Because 5 years ago, people weren't doing legless rope climbs.
Mm-hmm.
People weren't doing lateral sprints and all these different variations of gymnastics that incorporate these other aspects you would find in sport. So while I agree that these athletes would need to develop these other areas of sport as well to kind of help them, support them, but I think we'll also see what day-to-day or what week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year training in CrossFit is going to look like is going to incorporate things that develop those as well.
Sure.
The very last sentence of Fitness in 100 Words is regularly learn and play new sports.
Right.
And I still think that people are going to go out and express that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think you see kids that are just training and like home. I've heard of kids being homeschooled for CrossFit. And I think what happens is anytime.
What does that mean?
So they are being homeschooled so they can stick around and train.
Ooh, I don't like that.
I think it's just a particular like isolated case.
Yeah.
But with anything anytime anything gets hot, you see the polar extremes.
Sure.
Right? There are people that are like maintain the. Like, I don't want to progress with the sport. These people that I want to go all the way in the other direction. Yeah. And you'll kind of have this averaging out of people kind of honing in on the middle. It's like, what's the flavor of the month for training this week? Is Olympic lifting more? Is this program better? Is this program better? I think we'll see athletes that have a background in CrossFit. Like I would say I have a background in basketball.
Right.
But I played other sports as well.
What you're saying is a background, maybe not someone that specializes in just CrossFit from an early age.
Yeah.
So I agree with Brooke on that point. Like if someone were to just do CrossFit, there's no way.
Yeah.
However, you see who are the top dog CrossFitters now. They're people that have been doing it a long time, because a lot of the movements, kipping pull-ups, swinging muscle-ups, those are just found in CrossFit.
Yeah.
So all of those people, I think, have a very strong foundation in other sports. Rich, Brooke, Lindsay Valenzuela, they all played other sports and became really powerful, and they built their kind of mindset doing those other sports. But I do think if people are playing football, baseball, etc., and also dabbling in CrossFit throughout their life, I do think we could see some new shit, some next level shit.
Yeah, and I think a good example of that now, and maybe we'll see a whole nother level of that, is how Ben Smith's developed. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy that's been doing CrossFit for 10 years, man, since he was 15.
Right.
Like, and maybe he wasn't like raised doing CrossFit, but CrossFit was a part of how he prepared himself for swimming for a little bit, for baseball, whatever it was. But CrossFit was very much a part of his core development as an athlete and as a young man, and even now into a gym owner and all those things. Right. And how we express that is Ben's a great mover. He won the CrossFit Games. He's one of those guys that, like, if we had a Hall of Fame, he's like right down the list, first ballot. Yep. And I think we're only going to see that amplified. So like a guy who does CrossFit all the time, he's grown up in a gym doing that stuff, who also goes out and, plays football or plays on his high school football team, goes all these things, but still makes time for training as well. And I think we're going to see some like genetic freaks, because, absent of a few sports that maybe I'm not aware of, like where have you not seen a sport where 5 years down the line, the records that stood there aren't being broken, save maybe baseball, where there's the whole steroid area and stuff like that. But you look at weightlifting, everything else, like just people they figured out that, hey, people are capable of this, maybe I'm capable of it too, and they just exceed those expectations. So I think with that into the sport, the margins are going to get narrower.
So you're kind of hinting at something, and I think you're being sacrilegious, but you're saying one day someone may be fitter than Rich Froning.
Yeah. I'm kind of looking up to this guy to see if a lightning bolt hits me right now. Because, he is the chosen one. But it's funny. It's like saying, is there going to be someone that's going to be better than Michael Jordan one day in basketball? Like, I think so. Will it be anytime soon? We don't know. I think myself as a fan and as an analyst, and all of us as people who got to see Rich, are very fortunate to see that wonderful combination of anatomy and genetics, like, paying off with hard work, determination, and all these other skills developed elsewhere, and that mentality that he has. So eventually, yes, but we might not see it for a while.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Let me just ask. What would that person have to do to be considered better than Rich Froning?
It's a good question.
Yeah, 'cause in
The question from Marston Sawyers was, what would that person have to do to be considered better than Rich Froning? Technically, he or she would have to win 5 CrossFit games in a row. To be fitter, I think we could have some markers like a 400-pound clean and jerk, a 330-pound snatch, and run a 5-minute mile. Like, some markers like that. However, they're the only way to say he's better at CrossFit than Rich. He's got to win 5, I think.
Yeah, it's tough.
And Rich has to be there.
And Rich has to be there.
I don't
Wins, open wins?
I don't necessarily agree that they have to beat Rich, because if it comes later on down the line, then, like, Rich is a grandpa in his thing. There's very clear marks, like you say, this person is more fit than he is,
Right.
because how we define fitness is with all these different markers.
And those are all physical.
But to say he's a better CrossFitter and he's a better athlete and a better competitor,
Yeah.
it's really hard to say. It's like, that's why, like, in other sports, like, greatness is sometimes measured in championships. Like, how did you perform with the environment around you, and how did you rise above or rise below that? How did you dictate the environment around you? And I think someone would have to win more championships than Rich. They may not have to do it in a row. If, say, someone pulls a Jordan and does a three-peat,
Right.
steps aside, does another three-peat, you might see that.
I think we'll see Frazier do that.
Really?
Yeah.
I definitely think he's going to win. I definitely think he'll win multiple CrossFit Games championships. I think he'll be the fittest man on the planet a couple times. It's just time,
Right. Agreed.
I think my colleague Pat Sherwood had a great quote about the race this year. Like, it was just Ben Smith's time. Like, this guy, he's put in so much work and so much time. Like, when Ben won, you're just like, I don't think anyone was really upset about it. Like,
And no one should be surprised.
yeah, absolutely not. The dude's a stone cold killer. Like, when it comes to fitness, and
So consistent.
yeah, and I think Matt will have his time, and maybe next year, and maybe the next 5 years. So he's definitely something special, and it's fun to watch him. He's one of those guys I get pumped every time I get to see him work out.
For sure. Couple of personal questions, and then we'll wrap it up. You have to go see the new Star Wars, I know. So you got an amazing job for an amazing company. You're very successful, super intelligent. Does a guy like you...
Too nice, man. You're too nice.
Do you have any fears and doubts? And if so, how do you deal with those?
Fears... It's funny. Like, I would say I had more fears a few years ago. It's just like, and some of them may be irrational. It's just like, what if yesterday, or tomorrow, sorry, everyone just is like, you know what? I don't like CrossFit anymore. Because without a doubt, CrossFit is the best, in my opinion, the best fitness program on the planet. Like, it's for everybody, but it's not for everybody, because some people just aren't willing to be involved with that. But it's like, what if tomorrow, what if tomorrow it just all went away? Like, what if tomorrow nobody cared about CrossFit, and nobody cared about their health, and nobody cared about this and that? And there's some things going on right now, like, there's some battles we're fighting with the ACSM and NSCA about legislation for trainers and stuff like that.
Coke.
Yeah, well, and they're just basically trying to make it illegal to practice CrossFit and be a CrossFit trainer unless we register with them and pay them a fee.
They make a shit ton of money.
Yeah, which it's like, it's finally been one of those things where they can't beat us, so they're trying to join us somehow by tapping into what we're doing, which is kind of ridiculous. It's like, nothing about us. You have no comprehension of what we're trying to do and what we're aiming for, and you fought us every step of the way, and now you're trying to pull from us, like, make us register with you. Like, you guys are supposed to be the authorities over us of what we do in the gym with our clients. Like, yeah, that's kind of scary. And when things like that happen, because, it's funny. Like, I had someone tell me once, you're only a disgruntled lawsuit away from losing everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all it takes is you piss off one person who maybe has more resources, more assets and things than you to lose everything. And that may be irrational in my mind, but like, I worry about that from time to time. Like, what if people just stopped caring?
Right.
That kind of scares me a little bit.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm pretty confident in what we do and
Yeah.
like the lifestyle that we're helping people achieve, and like just helping people be better.
Sure.
Like that kind of keeps me going. You
Right.
know?
How about personally? You ever doubt yourself?
Yeah, from time to time, and I think that's healthy. Like when has anyone been 100% right on about anything,
Yeah.
right? So, and the minute you think you have it figured out, you're probably wrong, and something changes. I have doubts, definitely when we're putting stuff together. Like, is this good? Is this bad? Is this legitimate? Like, are people gonna like this? But like, we pour our heart and soul into something. I pour my heart and soul into it every day, and what we do at CrossFit, and the people around me do that as well. So you kind of have to trust that. And when doubt creeps in your mind, just like listen to yourself. Like, hey man, we're putting out good stuff here.
Yeah.
We're trying to help the community, and we're staying focused on these core values, like I mentioned earlier. And then trust that.
Right.
Trust in the process.
I think the key is acknowledging it, right? That it is doubt, recognizing it, and like you said, just continue doing what you're doing. If it is a cause for concern, then it's going to manifest in an actual way, not just a doubt in your head. Right?
Yeah.
Not just a thought.
It's okay to doubt yourself. It happens, but as long as you don't let it control you and let it like dictate what you're doing, then it's a healthy balance.
Right. Who do you look up to? It could be fitness or not, dead or alive.
I look up personally. A lot of the people who I look up to are in my own family. My grandpa on my mom's side, both my grandparents on both sides. My parents a lot. I have, and I'm sure people will say this all the times, but I have two of the most outstanding parents that any guy could ask for. They've worked so hard, because I have a younger brother too. There's never been a doubt in my mind, even though I may not have expressed it the right way, that my two parents weren't doing anything that they did for unless it was for the best interest of me and my brother. So like, they put us first all the time. And like, we didn't always have the most, but my parents never, like, they busted their ass. They did everything for us. Like, my dad crossed like labor strike lines to make sure, he could provide for us. My mom and my dad, who both don't have college degrees, like, work their way up the totem pole at their respective jobs to like be able to provide us, put us through good schools, put us through college. My brother's a junior in college right now, and teach us, good values to be good people. That trickled down from my grandparent, my grandpa on my mom's side, who was World War II veteran, a Korean War veteran. My grandma, who, a Mexican American, who's like, grew up at a time where that, like, not always the easiest thing to grow up as, especially in California.
Minority.
Yeah. And she, worked hard despite being like having these ailments, like being bedridden, working to provide for everyone. And, I have an awesome family. Like, they've set an amazing example of what it's like to be good human beings, work for something better than you, and just try and make the most out of your situation. Because, like, it's easy to look at what other people have and be like, I want that, and miss out on what's in front of you. And that's pretty cliche to say, but like,
no,
yeah.
It's very apparent in your actions that that's what you're trying to do.
Thanks,
right?
man.
You're trying to be the best person you can be, and it's inspiring for sure.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, my dad always says, try and give the people that come behind you, like your kids or nephews, nieces, try and give them a little bit more than you had.
Right.
And if you do that, and you gave it your all to do that, like whether it's work, family time, whatever, then like you can hold your head high, and that's kind of like the core, like, backbone to what I try to do. So
I love that, man. Where can people find you? At Tommy Marquez.
Yeah. So Instagram at Tommy Marquez, Twitter at TMarQ14. I'm not as active on Twitter. A lot of my Twitter stuff is just Instagram or
Gotcha.
Facebook. I'm on Facebook, Tommy Marquez. If you're a CrossFit or whatever, I love having them add me and add to my network and stuff like that, because we're all kind of one big family. So yeah, that's pretty much.
And then
what
you're on the update show. You're on what else?
On the update show, I do Inside the Leaderboard, which is another segment. We do our Day at the Game show, which is live. I can't specifically say for sure anything right now, but we've got hopefully some stuff in the works.
Some very cool shit, guys.
Yeah, coming down the pipe next year to better serve the community, which is going to be awesome, because that's really what we're aiming for. So yeah, hopefully on Periscope. So through Twitter, TMark14 again. We're looking to do some more Periscope in the future, just to kind of give some people a feel of what it's like to be at headquarters. So
I love it. Thanks a lot, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man.
Guys, if you haven't already, go to www.brutestrengthtraining.com, sign up for the newsletter. We will give you updates on podcasts, blog posts, free programs, announcements, lots of cool shit. Hope you enjoyed the show.